at 60, you should have $1.7 million. That's the math. And then the average 401k account value, 55 to 64, average number is $244,000. Nowhere near to enough to retire on that, right?
For the majority, I would say. And then I also feel like people dump into the long-term retirement plans without taking into account of, I guess, like strategy in your life. Because again, once you put it in there, it's essentially locked up without penalty. So,
Yo, B, let's go. You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
welcome back, Rebels, to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. I'm Julian here with my boy B. And today we're going to talk to you about retirement accounts, but specifically how they're overrated. We think there's a heavy over-reliance on retirement accounts in today's society. So as usual, we're going to dive into it a little bit. To preempt this, I am a user of a retirement account through my employer. I do have a 401k equivalent that I contribute to. And without going into too much details about my personals, I invest in it up until my company will match. So that's just kind of my opening take on the topic, or not really take, but like what I do. And then B, I don't know if you have anything like you want to share, like what you do.
I have a 401k. I cashed out my Roth IRA. My wife cashed out her 401k and cashed out her Roth IRA. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, retirement accounts, like, you go to Reddit, like financial pages, or any YouTube, like finance YouTubers, and the only thing they talk about is 401k and Roth IRA.
Yeah.
And that just seems like they try to make it the overarching for everyone, which I've said it multiple times on the podcast. I don't like that. I don't like this plan that fits for everyone in the world.
One size fits all motto. Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
For anything.
And
really.
There's so many, I don't want to say cons, but there's definitely give and take for these, goated retirement accounts that they're like, oh, like there's no downside to it. Not true at all. So I just want to dive into that today.
Yes. I don't know who's saying there's no downside to it, or if you're paraphrasing, but strongly disagree with the take that there's no downside to retirement accounts. And I know for 401ks, I know there's different variants, or there's like equivalents. And then for IRAs, or the individual retirement accounts, there's different versions of that too. But I think those are 401k, IRA is pretty much what we're mostly going to refer to. From what I can understand, those are the most like common ones.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. So yes, I neglected to mention I also have a IRA account as well. That's actually been pretty idle. I actually don't actively pour into that one, and I'm thinking about adjusting that one. But yes, I do have a 401k equivalent and a IRA account as well. So yeah, that's just a little bit about us to kind of set the tone here. But so kind of going what you said, because I always hear it too, that I don't know if it's people like going into jobs, but the first topic around saving is usually like, hey, did you like start your retirement account, or like so a lot of jobs have them as well, I guess, like sponsored through the job, which you can invest in through them. And like you said, a lot of will match up to a certain percentage. And I know we can speak on that. I know you have some thoughts on that too. But again, my personal take, as I said, I utilize it. And do I think it's a great tool? Absolutely. But I think it's kind of implicit in the name retirement account. But I think what's often, I can't even say overlooked, because I know people know this, but it's just like, I don't know, maybe not consciously thought about, is that it's intended for it's a long-term investment vehicle. And it's like structurally not supposed to be withdrawn from until you retire. So by the virtue of that, like, this is something that you're going to put your money into, and for lack of a better terms, it's going to be locked up in these accounts for a long time. And I know that's something you and I both kind of want to like drill into, because if this is the only thing you're using, my personal take is I like to like kind of diversify where my money is if I can. And that kind of does the opposite. Now, you can diversify within, let's say, the 401k. There's different funds or whatever you can go into. But again, if it's in the 401k, it's unable to be touched without being penalized. And I don't know the stipulations of all the penalties or how much, depending on how much you take out or how the taxes change. In a nutshell, correct me if I'm wrong, like you can't pull out of it until you hit your time allotted without penalty. And to me, I never want to be penalized monetarily if I can avoid it. Like that's just like kind of throwing away some of my money when there's so many other options out here to invest in.
There are so many caveats, and you can pull it out if you meet these stuff, but that's not like a regular person isn't going through those things often.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's like you can take out a loan to buy your to help with your down payment for 401k and stuff like that, but it's in a form of a loan, so you have to still pay it back.
Exactly.
It's like you're investing so much money into this, and you can have literally up to like you can have so much money into it, and you cannot touch it till you're 59 and a half.
Yeah.
And in case of a Roth IRA, if you have your account open for 5 years, yes, you can touch the principal. But that also kind of defeats the purpose. Now you're treating it like a little savings, like piggy bank. Right. So that's not the purpose of it. Besides those 401k and Roth IRA, there's so many other options for retirement accounts. But like you said, majority of the people, I would say like 95% of the people, they're only thinking about 401k and Roth IRAs.
Yeah.
And we're just here to talk about, there's so many other, I don't want to say better, but there's other options that you need to explore. And then there's going to be a decision up to you ultimately, but you just need to at least be aware of it.
Yes. Okay. So that awareness piece, I think, is huge. And again, I'll caveat this, which we usually try to, right? Like we're not like financial experts or anything. And we do recognize that some of these plans can be like highly individualized. If you have your sights set on something that you're not trying to, you need minimal capital until you're 60 or greater or something, sure. Some of these plans or situations, investment strategies may work for you. But again, for the majority, I would say, there's other avenues. And then I also feel like people dump into the long-term retirement plans without taking into account of what, like, I guess, like strategy in your life. Or I would just be curious if there's any consideration to, I don't know, if somebody has like a plan goes like, okay, in 5 years, I might need this or this. Because again, once you put it in there, it's essentially not technically locked up, but like essentially locked up without penalty. So, I mean, you pretty much said it, just to explore like kind of what else is out there, or just the thoughts surrounding what your money might look like or what's not happening to it while it's in a retirement account. We'll talk about like some of the cons or things that aren't as frequently talked about like in a retirement. We already mentioned a little bit, briefly, how it's going to be, I'll say like restricted access once it's in there. But what else like kind of jumps out at you though, B, when you think of like people just dumping the large majorities of their money into these retirement accounts? That's like red flag. Hold on, there's some other options.
Yeah, so within Roth IRA and 401k, I understand there's some people that's like, oh, but you can do. We know that you can do other options, but within 401k, and that's the employer sponsored 401k.
Yeah,
that you get the match for, and the Roth IRA that you open through a brokerage, those are limited to like paper securities, right? Like stocks and bonds, pretty much. So with that, like for example, I mean, if you're in bonds for most of your life, you're not getting the growth. But then, so let's go into stocks, but then you experience like a 2000, like a dot-com bubble type scenario. You could experience a Great Recession, 2008 type scenario. And if those are what you're relying on, and like all of your retirement, or at least majority of, or even half of your retirement's in stocks, like I don't want, in worst cases, it could delay your retirement by probably like 5 years, if you look at the stock chart at 2008, like that dropped. There's no way if you're planning to retire at 2000, if you're planning to retire in 2008 and you had everything in stocks, that, you know, you were like, okay, 4% rule, I'm going to just pull out 4% and be good for the rest of my life, you were screwed.
That's not,
you know?
yeah.
So that's actually, I think that's one of the biggest things, that the limited availability of the type of assets that you want to invest into that people don't often talk about.
Okay. Say the last part again. You're saying, what about the type of investments?
Yeah, just like you're just restricted into those stocks and bonds pretty much.
Got you.
You can open different accounts that you can invest into other types of assets. Mm-hmm. But for the main two that we're talking about, you don't have an option. So
yes, nothing really from an agreement. I mean, most of that is factual stuff, like it following the market and it being susceptible to the volatilities of whatever market it's following. It's absolute fact. Which honestly, I mean, I think that took me a while, like, to realize too, because so this is actually good. Speaking on the tip of like just being fed, or the first thing we're being fed is to, like, you know, throw your monies in these accounts. I think I opened it at a good age, like pretty young, when like people were talking about it, but I put my money into into my retirement account with really like no strategy behind it. And similarly, I opened up my IRA through with also like no real thought. I had money. I had money that I had gotten, like, accumulated in college, and I was like, hey, I just want my money to do something, which is a phenomenal starting point. And because people were having financial conversations around me, but I didn't really know what it's doing. So you talking about like how you can, you know, you can reallocate your money within these retirement accounts. I think that's huge too, because like you and I know, and I've bounced ideas off you before too, about just like structuring money within my retirement account, specifically my 401k equivalent. And I actually ended up taking money out just to contribute what I would get matched for. Mm-hmm. And I like that personally because it allowed me to do some other things with my money that, you know, not everybody was doing. But again, to kind of reiterate, I'm sounding redundant now, it wasn't locked into that retirement account. And then similarly with the IRA, that one is just, you know, there's like fees and stuff associated with it. It's being managed by other people. So I think at the time I opened it, again, I was like, I think in college, I didn't realize that. I realized it was kind of active and somebody else was managing it, but I didn't realize, you know, like they get a cut of what is made in that account. So that's like, you know, just something that I would like people to know going in that I didn't know.
I mean, that's common. I would say that's more common on the 401k side.
Yeah.
Rather than the IRA side.
Yeah. Mine specifically, yeah.
Because IRA, there's so many brokerages that you can open a Roth through, and then you just invest into like an index fund, right?
Yep.
And from there, I mean, they take a very small They do take a management fee, but it's very minuscule. But on the 401k, I've seen so many funds, because 401k employer-sponsored 401k, mm-hmm. you can only invest into funds. You mm-hmm. can't pick individual stocks. So with the 401k, like I've seen funds that take like 1%, which is crazy to me, because all of these like passive index funds that the 401k, whoever the financial institution your company goes through, they have index funds in there that's like 0.03% management fee.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like every $10,000 they're taking $3, which is nothing, right?
That's not. Yeah, that's negligible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm trying. So I mean, we always hear about, like we said, it's kind of thrown in your face. Especially, I mean, it was for me at the entry levels, maybe coming into jobs. It was some of the, I don't know if I say first financial advice I got, but very early on.
Especially for the younger people, right? Like they say, hey, go max out your Roth right away, right? But if you're, 18 years old, just graduated high school, maybe you go into a trade, or maybe you go do something, mm-hmm. or a fresh new college grad that has student loans that they have to buy a car. So they're automatically like 100K in debt between their school and their car. And then from there, while they're making their payments, they're like, oh, hey, you should be maxing out your Roth, which now the limit in 2024 is $7,000. And then generally, as the years go by, when I first looked into it, it was 6,000 and went to 65, and now it's 70. But let's say that's nearly like $600 every month that they have to invest for.
That's
on top the bills they have to pay, on top of on top of the money that they want to save for a house one day, a wedding one day, engagement ring one day, vacation, like your hobbies. Like it's hard to max out those accounts early on. And then great if you can do that. And I do want to say Roth IRA, if you can truly max it from right when you graduate college, we'll just say college 22. I just threw it in a calculator. Let's say you graduate 22, you figure out your life, and you start maxing out from 25 and now you invest all the way up to 60, which is 35 years. And if you invested that $7,000, which is going to be a low number because as the years go by, you can invest more.
Yeah.
But sticking at the 7,000 at the rate of return of 10%, which is very market average. Yep. Yeah, very standard. Nothing crazy, nothing low, nothing high. You're going to end up with 1.9 by the time you're 60, which it sounds a lot in today's dollars, but then as inflation takes a cut.
That's the next point. Yeah.
So if you want to account for inflation, instead of making the market return at 10%, you can account for 3% inflation, for example, and you can do your own math on this. Whoever that wants to put in an investment calculator. Let's say there's 3% for inflation, so 10 subtract 3, let's say 7% return, and then that will get you $1 million in today's money.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you're not going to be living. I mean, depends on depends on the strategy you want to employ.
Yes.
4% rule, like you're not going to be living lavish retirement. But then if you want to just divide that million into, hey, I think I'm going to only live for 20 years, then, you got a little bit more money. And then maybe at 15, then you got a little bit more money. But then if you do outlive that, you're kind of screwed. Now you're just living on Social Security, which I don't even think it's going to exist by the time we're in retirement age. And, we talked about how Social Security was one of the biggest Ponzi schemes. That was episode 6 on our podcast. But yeah, I don't hear people talking about this at work, and because I do hear people talking about the 401k, but I don't hear about this stuff at work. So it's like,
and that's
no, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say that's what I'm starting to notice with a lot of stuff we like to talk about is, again, the surface level. It's introduced, but it's not expounded upon, so it's not going in depth, and that's kind of like why we rebel against these things, because you only get that surface level, which isn't necessarily the best advice. And I love what you said, and I'll just call it the one size fits all theories, whatever, advice, whatever you want to call it. But for so many different things, it's just this one size fits all. Hey, if you guys do this, this is the best way to do it. Like you said, just max out these accounts. Yeah, I mean, that's taking into account for zero variables. There's always variables.
Yep, because I seen it firsthand, which it may sound crazy to a lot of people, but I'm seeing this because I kind of market myself as the money guy to my friends and family. Like, oh, hey, I just want to help you. I'm not taking anything. I just want to talk about it if you're comfortable enough to talk about it. And we start talking, and there was a couple of people that, I was in the Navy before this, and then the government equivalent of a 401k is the Thrift Savings Plan, TSP. Pretty much the same thing, just different funds. And they got the old saying, hey, invest in your retirement account, max out your 401k, max out your Roth. They literally have their money into a fund that was pre-selected for them when they first opted into the 401k.
That's what I was getting at. Yep.
And I was like, this girl, she had 80 grand in the G fund for TSP, which is investing in government bonds. It was returning 0.8%.
Yeah.
Maybe on the high end 2%. So we were talking to her, was hey, you are literally losing money not in terms of the number that you see on the screen, but for the purchase power.
I feel like the potential.
Yeah. So I was like, you need to switch that immediately. And I saw another example with the Roth IRA. This was a family member in this example, which they are a little bit older. So I wish I could have talked to them a little bit earlier. But they were putting money into their Roth IRA. They had a good chunk in it. But they never bought any securities with it. The money was just sitting as like a cash account in the Roth IRA.
Oh,
they're not buying
literally making
they're not buying index funds with it or stocks or whatever, right?
Oh, wow.
So that's why I hate these blanket statements of like max out your Roth IRA.
That sucks.
Because someone goes and listens to that advice and like, oh, I'll go, the max limit is 7,000 divided by 12. I'm going to invest this much a month, and they never do anything with it, which is defeating the entire purpose of the retirement account.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why we're here to rebel against these, these the blanket statements that I hate blanket statements.
Yeah, me too. And I love it. You can hear like the passion coming out. Yeah, there's just with all, I think I'll say investment vehicles, I guess, there's just an element of things that you simply can't control that, for instance, like you mentioned two of them, like kind of the volatility. You mentioned like the dot-com bubble or 2008, and also inflation, which is more, I mean, you kind of know it. That's why you can calculate for inflation. But again, these are just things I think when you like put your money in and do like a brief approximation of, oh, like it might grow this much time, I just think are often not taken into effect. And you just said like the diminishing the purchase power. It's not always what you think it's going to be when you get to that age. So yeah, not only are you locking your money up, you might not be getting the amount that you think you're going to get at 59 and a half or, whenever you take it out. So like that's huge to like be conscious of. So yes, are these investment vehicles good? Yes. Should you start younger? Yes. But then it gets more nuanced where it's like, because you said you had somebody that was literally just sitting in there in this cash value, like, no, be conscious of where your money is going once it's in. And then furthermore, which is the heart of what we're getting at, do you need to max it out? And are you able to max it out and maintain like a lifestyle that you want? Again, those like slightly deeper questions that, this isn't too within in the weeds of it, honestly. It's like one level deeper that I think could help a lot of people. I truly.
This is very simple stuff.
Yeah.
So far, hopefully we can get into a little bit more. But what you said the actual amount to, in these accounts at retirement, we're doing all these hypotheticals like, you start at zero, you invest for 35 years, you assume 10% return. Let's say you invest $500 a month into your 401k. Let's just say, right? Mm-hmm. So you chose your S&P 500 index fund within your 401k plan.
Right.
And with that being said, at 60, you should have $1.7 million. That's the math. Right? That's the hypothetical. But I just did a quick Google search, and then the average 401k account value per age. So, I mean, there's anywhere from 25, it goes all the way to 25 to 65, but the more important numbers, like 55 to 64, that bracket, the average number is $244,000.
In their 401k?
That's the average.
Which is far from the 1.8.
Yeah, nowhere near to enough to retire on that, right?
Right.
So all these math and hypotheticals are great, but they're not, reality. People go through life, and it's not, they're not a robot. You can't just assume that $500 is going to be put in every single month. The 10% return is more reliable because that's the historic average for over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and even for 65 and older, that account value goes up just a little bit to $272,000. Which, and like, they're not, they talk about all this math, But then in reality, people are not getting to these numbers that they need to get for retirement. So people are going to struggle. Yeah. And hopefully with better, access to information in today's day and age, and as more and more people get interested in the topic of money and investing, which I think I see it and I hear about it more. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that value is going to increase over time, adjusted for inflation. But yeah, it's like, I think I see these numbers. I'm like, dude, I would be freaking out.
Yeah. So with what you just said, I have a question for you. Do you think there is I'm pretty sure I know what you're gonna say, but do you think people are like relying on these accounts like too heavily? Like they become almost like maybe narrow-minded to like, hey, I'm doing something, putting my money somewhere, but do you think they're like over relying on these accounts that's could be affecting them elsewhere?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're over relying on it, and what you said earlier, this is surface level stuff. They're just not looking into, the one level, the two level deeper stuff, which is, okay, the first is like understanding them and funding it. Mm-hmm. Second is like understanding the funds and where you want to put your money into. And these are very quick Google searches, or like mm-hmm. a 10-minute YouTube video from a reliable guy can cover this information. And then from there, you want to look at, okay, based on my investment strategy, this is this or that. And I'm not a big fan of financial advisors, because anyone with a little bit of homework can do just as well. But if it comes down to it, maybe talking to them might not be a bad idea. Right?
Yeah.
And hopefully, if you do go the fee-based financial advisor, not the allocation-based, the percentage-based. Because, if you do it right and you get to these like 7-figure numbers, even them, them taking 1%, they're taking like 10 grand, let's say, on $1 million. But if it's fee-based, you can pay hourly, or like whatever fee structure that you have worked out with your advisor.
Dude, I think that's a really good nugget. What you just said, the fees versus the like the percentages, or I guess the fixed fee versus the percentage. That I think is huge. That's a really good little nugget to throw in there.
Also on the stock side too, like stock investing, like if you go the index funds route, it's not that complicated. It's very simple. Once you set it up, it probably take you max 3 hours for you to do the manual work of opening an account, watching some YouTube videos and learning about stuff, and start to set it up. And then after you set it up, it's like automatic. Money gets taken out of your paycheck before it even hits your bank account, and it already gets invested into it. Like literally 3 hours of work one day could change the trajectory of your retirement, which is a crazy concept. But people don't do it. It's like you seen there was like an experiment done where I don't know, I think they showed the younger people, like an older version of them. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they did that. Maybe they took the same race and just took the older people and showed them, what do you think about them? And then, you see, even if you saw yourself as the older guy, like you see them as more of a stranger, even though that it could be you in that situation. So they never give that thought into, well, maybe I should think about retirement. Does that make sense? It's like it's like, hey, Julian, I'm going to show you what you're going to look like when you're 40. You're going to be like, oh shoot, like that's me. I can see myself in it. Mm-hmm. But then I show you like, hey, this is you when you're 80. I'm not saying you, but majority of the people in this experiment was like, oh, like, I don't care about them. Like, that's not me. So I'm not going to invest for this guy.
Yeah.
That's imaginary in their head, So I think people are just not thinking about retirement. And it gets to a point where it might be too late, right? Because not everyone's going to be these super high earners that's making 200, 300, 400K by the time they're, in their golden years of like high peak earning season of their life. And if you're not, you don't have retirement. I don't know. Like you might just.
So I disagree with what you said about people aren't thinking about retirement. I think people are thinking about retirement. It's just, again, not the layered depth that, to your point, may not take all that much. Like, I don't know, like researching and just opening accounts, setting up accounts, automating the funds, automating the transactions may not take that much. I really do. I think most, if I had to put, like, I think the majority are thinking about retirement. But
okay.
You know what I mean? I think they're trying to do something. I think they're trying to do something. I don't think it's from inaction, like, you know, not just putting money in their savings and checkings. Like, I think maybe something is happening, but
the stats show otherwise.
That's true. We probably can't go. Yeah. So you're saying, like, you think most people just aren't even taking advantage of like?
I think the most realistic situation
people that can take advantage, like, yeah,
is if you're aware of it and people do it. Like, there is going to be certain pot of population that's actually doing it, actually doing the research, and actually putting in money every single month without stopping ever.
Yeah.
But I think majority of the people, like you said, they may be aware of it. They may have an account open. They may have a little bit going that they never thought about. But they're not seriously considering, like, a planning for retirement until they're like 35.
Yes.
Or maybe 40.
Well, probably later than that. Yeah. I think it's probably later than that, to be honest.
And then when that happens, the compound effect is just so diminished to the point that someone that's putting in $500 a month since they were in their 20s, they're going to outperform someone that's started when they're 40, putting in like $2,000 a month. Right.
Yeah. No. Okay. That I agree with. Yeah.
That was my kind of take on people not really taking. They may be thinking about it, but not taking it seriously enough.
Yes. Which, again, sounds crazy because it's like you're retired. Like, it's your retirement. It's for your future self. But to that kind of experiment you alluded to, it's hard to maybe consider your future self or, like, think that far down the road. So it is all very interesting. And I you know, I get it. It can be speaking firsthand, it can be hard to project that far down the line. But to something you said, some of the stuff you can just automate. And it's like, if you have a weekend and, you know, you just put some energy to it, set something up, you can always change it. Like, a lot of these things, once the money's in, like, you can change the allocation stuff. You can change it later. It's not 100% locked in, but, like, it just, again, it needs to take that one layer deeper. And something you mentioned, high earners, which I don't think I really recognized. I don't know if you could speak to it more, but for some people, there's like, well, I guess I knew there was kind of like limits, but for some people, you can only put in so much. So, like, if you're trying to invest, like, you would almost, again, this is for the high earners, you have the ability to do a little bit more. You would almost be forced to look into some other vehicles that you can take advantage of because you're limited into what you can contribute. Which I think is also interesting to look at from, like, the flip perspective of, like, a high earner versus, like, the everyday person, maybe.
Yeah, so what you're talking about in 2024, at least, if you're over the limit of $161,000 for a single filers, like tax filers, or if you're filing jointly with your spouse, then you can make up to 240 and still take advantage of these of the Roth. 401k, I think you can do pretty much
like whatever.
I think.
I was speaking. Totally I think Roth.
But I mean, even for those people, if they want to get it into Roth, you can look into the backdoor Roth and the mega backdoor Roth, which I mean, there's very good YouTube videos about it. But basically, what you're doing is you're putting in money into a retirement account that's not a Roth, and then you're converting it. Most of the time, just paying the taxes on it, and then convert that money. Now that you're paid your taxes on it, you can put it into a Roth. That's basically the backdoor methods that to cover. So that's what a lot of high income earners utilize. But again, you're stuck in the Roth, right? And now that, I mean, you kind of said it, I want to explore, you know, other options that's in the retirement, I guess, retirement account, or, like, you know, finance related for retirees, like that. But so you got your employer sponsored retirement accounts. That's your 401k, 403 for teachers, I think. And then you get your TSP, which is for government employees. You got your traditional IRA or Roth IRA, which is basically pre-tax versus post-tax. And then a lot of people or the thing that I'm actually a fan of and I have been looking into, I haven't done it yet because I'm still working for my company, but you can do a individual 401k retirement account.
Yeah.
And then you can invest in stuff that's not stocks or like bonds. You can buy real estate with it if you want.
Yeah.
There's a lot of regulations and you still need to go through a
broker,
not a sponsored company to go through.
Okay.
But I have seen a lot of videos and people talking about that more and more because I do think that's actually a really, good plan if you know what you're doing pretty much to avoid taxes. And if anyone's listening to this podcast for a little bit, I'm a big fan of real estate. So majority of my net worth is in real estate, little bit is in stocks, little bit is in crypto, good chunk is in cash. But yeah, like I think, having real estate will be a better, I don't know, like more of a stable retirement account, in my opinion. There's whole debate on it.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's not passive. I mean, I don't need it to be passive. I mean, like for
the houses, is how you structure it, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the good property managers in place.
Might be more you have to do on the front end, but yeah, it can't be.
Yeah, like the out of the state. We own a long-term rental in out of state. Like I've actually never seen it, and that's actually one of the best performing assets. And we get like a text or two, never a call in a year. And then tenants pay on time. Like we bought in a great location, like no issues.
Sounds passive to me.
So passive that we probably spend like an hour a year to manage it.
God.
And that sounds pretty passive to me, right? So if you have, like, I get it. As you get more and more rentals, that time might increase a little bit. But with the proper structure in place, it is really passive. If people don't think it's that passive, but it really can be.
Yeah.
So that was actually one of the reasons why my wife cashed out both of her retirement accounts, like 401k, Roth, and I cashed out my Roth. And I'm keeping my 401k because like majority of the companies, they get that 401k like percentage match for your employer. I think that's one of the best ones to take advantage of.
I mean, yeah, who else is going to give you money? Yeah, like...
Yeah, but it's crazy. People are not even doing that too. Like I
wonder what the logic is like. I don't know if you've like I don't know anybody personally.
Oh, I know a lot of people
that could articulate why they're not. So like we're welcome to counter arguments. I'd love to hear like I do not take advantage of my employer sponsored retirement account match because
I think it's more of a like ignorance. Like lack of knowledge type of thing.
Okay.
Because you explain it to them, like, hey, you're at least putting in X% to get the full benefit of the match, right? They're like, oh no, I'm putting in 3%. Like, dude, you gotta up that like right now.
Yeah.
Because that is, if like for the government, right? Government one's easy math because you put in 5, they give you 5.
You get 5. Yep.
So if you put in, let's just say easy numbers, you put in $100, they give you $100 on top of your $100.
Yes,
you're getting 100% return,
right?
Pretty much risk free.
Yes.
So that makes total sense. I don't see any argument against why you shouldn't even at least get to the employer match. Past employer match, I don't. If you're not disciplined enough to invest elsewhere, do I think it's a good thing to do? Yes, absolutely. But if you have any other option, I actually rather have it out of a 401k because you're going to get taxed on a 401k when you take it out anyway. Right? So I'd rather have it liquid now if I'm going to pay taxes on it. Yes, you get your little write-off. That's fine, but it's not making that much of a difference. Let's be real, right?
Yeah.
So And then we talked about 401ks or the employer sponsored ones. We talked about the individual retirement accounts. If you're in a job that has pension plans, I think that's a really good, like, a retirement vehicle, because I mean, that's all passive, right? You're getting it, and it's so stable. Like, majority, like, I don't know. Do they, once you start receiving your pension, can they just like cut it?
It's funny because my mom is like having this conversation like now where she's at in life. I don't. In my head, it's like, yeah, there's got to be, but I don't think so. Not that I've heard of.
Yeah, there might be ones and twosies, but like majority of the pension plans, it's like guaranteed.
Yes.
For
yes.
Yeah, for life, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's like, if you can get used to that lifestyle, living on X amount of dollars. Mm-hmm. I think that's actually a really good retirement plan if you're lucky enough to take advantage of it.
Right.
And then a lot of, where we come from with the Navy and the military, like, a lot of people are going to receive pensions, like pretty good pensions for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Because my dad, he's still in the Navy, which is crazy. I think he'll do like 27 years, I think. Oof, something like that.
Yeah.
And then at that point, he's in a retirement account, or he's in a retirement plan that basically you take your years of service, 27, multiply by 2.5, and that's 67.5. He will receive 67.5% of his income for the rest of his life. That sounds
not
pretty
terrible.
Good.
Yeah, not terrible.
And if you're making like 150K, that's pretty. Dude, you're gonna have a really cushy retirement,
right?
And a lot of times, he's doing 27. He's gonna go work afterwards.
I was just gonna say, and that's if you're not doing anything else. So if you're still doing like a little something on the side, or you have something else passive set up, like, it's not bad.
Yeah. And I used to be, so next, I have on a list annuities. But I was a big, like, I always thought annuities was like a big no-no, because mathematically you could make more money investing into stocks and stuff like that. Okay. But then I recently read the book called Die with Zero, and I know we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Die with Zero. The whole concept of the book is, you're gonna have all these money in your life. Why not spend it to the point and you actually die with zero? That's easier said than done.
Much easier, yeah.
And people have, what about this? What about that? And he kind of counters all of that in the book. But one of the things that he talks about is annuities. And I was just kind of thinking about it. I'm like, like retirement, I think what's important in retirement is more of stability rather than growth, I think. Because
I would agree. And like I said, my mom just entered retirement, so like it's kind of cool because I get to see some of her like thought process firsthand. And I think it's like more focused on just being stable at that point. I agree. So, but continue.
But annuities, like, you spend a large sum of money up front to buy annuity of this much for X amount of years, maybe until you die.
Okay.
And that stability of income for the rest of your life,
right?
Like, that's something that you can't really quantify in numbers. I mean, the amount you can, obviously.
Yeah.
But then the stability portion of, like, the peace of mind that you're going to get a paycheck of this amount.
Right.
And mathematically, it doesn't really pan out in terms of, opportunity cost in the stock market. But usually in retirement, like, I'm not in retirement, so this is all from the book. This is all from the book, obviously. But they talk about how the people's spending actually go down during retirement. And I mean, he explains it. It kind of makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they don't want to go do that. They're not playing. Like, we're not going hooping. On a Friday at 2. I mean, some people do in retirement, but most of the people, they're doing the easy on the body activities, and They travel less.
Yeah.
They probably eat less.
Yeah, your lifestyle's like, I mean, it's more stable.
Yeah. So I actually like annuities. I'm a pro annuities guy now.
Okay.
So I mean, if you're, I mean, I don't know your mom's situation, but if she wants to look into it, that might be something that they look into as well.
Yeah, we've been it's been like slow over time. We've been having like slow financial conversations, like just little things here and there. But I do like kind of seeing where she's at or like her situation, and then like learning from that. Or she'll just tell me like something like medical care. She'll just blurt some topic or account out, and then I'll like try to go research it or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of almost cool working through this with her real time. So I might have a conversation with her. Yeah.
And I mean, there's other retirement accounts too, like the infinite banking concept that I really dived into.
Yeah.
It's basically using whole life insurance, and if you use like Dave Ramsey's a big hater against that, but if you use it properly,
yeah,
with the right people in place to teach you about it, with the way that account, the right way for that account to be set up, it does make sense and it does work.
Yeah. I'm laughing because you said like with the I feel like that's kind of with anything. Like if you have the right, it's all the structuring. Like same with like we're saying these retirement accounts, or I mean if you have a stock portfolio, like if you structure right, blah blah blah, whatever, insert advice, but that is the key, kind of getting the right knowledge or the right team around you to like
good.
You had to sneeze.
And then another thing that they don't usually talk about, and it's one of the things that naturally happens, but people don't talk about it actively, is buying your house and paying off your house. Because people, I mean, there's two camps, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, there's two camps of I would say the typical American, which I'm on that side as well, that they say, hey, your house is an asset and an investment.
Yes.
And there's other camps of higher, smarter people than me. I'm not saying they're right or wrong because this is all perspective. They say that, buying your house is a liability because it's not producing income and you just pretty much paying into it every single month. But a magical thing happens after they pay off that mortgage. Is usually your biggest expense, like post taxes, is your rent or mortgage, right?
Right.
So they pretty much cut that down to zero. I get there's property tax still and insurance that you're gonna pay for, but not having to pay rent or mortgage for the rest of your life,
huge.
Like I would value that so much more than the money. It's more in the stability piece.
Yeah, which you brought up. It's a really good point.
And we talked about during the real estate versus stocks episode, real estate, I mean, just like any investment, like 99% of the time, unless you invested heavily into Detroit, like over 30 years, it's gonna go up if you buy it in the right places, good places. And maybe once you're in retirement, you could also downsize as well.
That's true.
You can sell it and you can move to, a place that's maybe cheaper to live or smaller in place and square footage or bedrooms. And you can probably walk away with like multiple 6-figure profit and still have a paid off house because you're going to go buy your next house cash.
Buy it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you downsize, you might. Yeah, no, you're spot on.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And, I say mortgage, though, I mean, mathematically speaking, again, like mathematics and theory is in life, but it doesn't make sense from an opportunity cost standpoint to pay off a low interest mortgage. It doesn't, because you can make more money in other places. Like, if you have 3%, if you're lucky enough to secure a 30-year mortgage on 3%, instead of paying it off, it does make more sense for you to go invest that money into the stock market because you'll make more. But, like the same thing still stands. It's life that we're talking about with retirement. Like they're not in the place to go gamble they're in the place to just,
be stable.
enjoy the fruits of their labor.
Yeah. No, the housing thing is really interesting, and I would agree that a house is an asset. You said an asset, or what would you say?
Like a liability?
No, not the other
investment.
Yeah, it's an asset / investment. I would. I mean, I guess it's perspective, but I would agree with that as well. And I mean, on that note too, there's kind of a time frame dynamic because there's 15-year mortgages, 30-year mortgages, whatever. But most of the time, I feel like it's 30-year mortgage. So if you wanted to get, have something paid off by 60, where it kind of aligns with using 60 as the retirement age, you would kind of need to have a house or like be solidified in something at a certain time. And again, this is using a very standard model of how you pay off your house. You can overpay into it, or like I said, you could have a shorter term, like a 15-year term, whatever. But you would have to start that at a certain time to have it paid off by 60, so you can enjoy that or downsize or capitalize on that capital, etc. So it's all very nuanced. But basically, like you were saying, I think that's a great option too, to kind of supplement your lifestyle, which again is not going to be a growth lifestyle. It's going to be, I feel like, pretty stagnant or stable. So I feel like you almost want to like max that point out where you're stable, so you have more of a cushion to live off of, especially considering like life expectancy is going up, all that stuff. That's also going to be a variable that may not be in effect now, but will be in effect maybe when our age demographic is at their retirement time. Yeah.
And now, I mean, while we're on the real estate topic, I want to bring up something. I also read a book recently called The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor, which I talked about in previous episodes. But one of the things that he talks about is, I forgot the exact number, which is, I think it's kind of important to this topic, but I forgot the number. But I want to say, let's say 5. He says, if you're a real estate investor and you dive into it and you learn the in and outs, buying 5 houses in your lifetime is not something that's unattainable. It's very doable with the proper knowledge and work and the timing and the financial capital and all this stuff. You can do it if you want to. And he says that with 5 paid off rental properties, you're gonna live a retirement that's better than most. Because let's just say rent is adjusted with inflation, so we can talk today's numbers, and it should be somewhat similar in the future as well. Right. And let's just say you bought 400, you have 4 paid off 400K houses, or 5, right? So you got $2 million in real estate that you accumulated over 40 years, let's just say. And you made extra payments on it and whatever, all the extra cash flow you threw into the mortgage, so you have it paid off by the time you're 60. You have 5 houses that's spitting out, let's just say that, I don't know, it's $2,000 per house, right? So that's $10,000 in gross rental income. And obviously, as any smart real estate investor, you're going to at least keep 10 to 20% as in reserves, right, of that 10,000. So let's say on the more conservative side, and we save 20%, which is $2,000 a month that you're saving for, maintenance that you're going to do. Yeah. There's going to be a couple months of vacancies, and there's going to be like large items that you need to pay for, like a roof, like the big ticket items. And after saving all that, you still have $8,000 a month. Right. And that's significant. I think I live like a really comfortable, live in a nice place, like nice part of town. Like I have my cars, and like I still don't spend $8,000 a month. Yeah. So adjusted for inflation, it's gonna be, that number's gonna be a little bit bigger. But yeah, I mean, the book talks about, if you can get to the number, like you're gonna be pretty much set for retirement. not accounting for 401k that you have, the Roth IRA that you have, Social Security that you have,
or
you may not have.
Yeah, right. Big question mark there. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like you're touching on, alternate revenue streams, or which largely we've been talking about passive revenue, which is also something we've talked about previously, but in this capacity, how it could offset your retirement, I think is huge, because a lot of people, which I think what I'm about to say fits both categories. When I say a lot of people, most people our age, talking around like 30s, are trying to maximize revenue streams right now. It's kind of a prime in your life, trying to do everything you can. But it's usually when I hear it, it's in the context of how can I get rich, or I'm trying to get like really wealthy now. But it can also apply to, if you put the long-term thought to it, like, okay, how can I supplement my retirement? Which is maybe kind of what you were talking about, where like not many people are really thinking about this. These methods are this, if you extrapolate this thinking of like, oh, I got these alternate revenue streams, is awesome. Highly recommend if you're capable and able. But again, now we're thinking long term, this could kind of help you in the end and help that stability in that post-retirement lifetime you're talking about, so you can live, that much more comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
But which we said before, I think it boils down to starting. You said in your spiel, like timing and always knowledge.
Yeah, you gotta learn now and start now.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this today. Like, so many people are like, oh, you bought before COVID, you were so lucky. But if you think about it, before COVID happened, if you bought a long time ago, you were gonna make money on it. It's not because COVID. Like, you know the point that I'm trying to get at, right?
Yes, I 100%.
Like, even if you bought houses before the great housing market crash in 2008, after the market crashed, you could have picked up a whole bunch more properties dirt cheap.
Yep.
And those 70K houses in 2010 is trading at like 800K now.
Yeah, some crazy. Oof.
And then that's going to be renting out for like $3,000, $4,000 a month. And yeah, so I never, like, I get it. Like, I get their point that they're trying to make. Like, during 2020 to 2024 today, housing prices did skyrocket.
Yes.
Really hard. But that still doesn't negate, like, if you don't look at these past 4 years and you look at the past 30 years, the concept still applies. If you buy today, in 30 years, you're going to be making money.
Right.
And the rent, as long as like you don't do dumb refinances, you pull out as much as you can, and there's very poor management in place.
Yeah.
If you avoid that, the rent that you collect will most likely, probably like by 99%, be higher than the mortgage that you're paying on the house.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to buy now, and then trying to buy as much as I can comfortably.
You're a great promoter for real estate. It's just so funny hearing you speak.
I used to be a stocks guy too.
Yeah,
I love stocks.
You were like really big into it at one point.
I mean, I still like stocks.
Right. I think it's just not your like priority. Yeah.
I have so much more control over real estate than stocks. Because you can buy Apple, but you're not going to influence how Apple runs. And even if I could influence it, I'll probably influence it in a bad way. If you're a big enough
shareholder, you could.
I'll be like, hey, Tim Cook, you should do this. And they'll be like, hey, man, like, that's a really dumb idea. I'm like, you know what? You're right. They'll probably do a better job growing their company than I can.
Yeah. No, but it's funny. I think comparing, right? We said there's an over-reliance on some people over-rely on these retirement accounts. But then some people, it's like the opposite. Some people just neglect. I mean, this is real estate specific. Like maybe starting in real estate, and this is specific to real estate, but start real estate because, like you said, the current market, or whatever. If you look at the long-term trend, it's gonna trend up. Like you're gonna make money on it over long term. So I just think it's funny to contrast. Like some people are over relying on the retirement accounts, but some people maybe aren't relying enough on real estate. And I get it, right? Real estate is a preference. There's no necessity. I just think it's a great vehicle to use. Obviously, you do too. So I just think that's funny. With if you get into real estate, and it don't even have to be crazy. Even if you can't get the 5 houses in your lifetime, like you'll likely get something, and that will supplement your retirement that you're over relying on, which just brings the whole thing full circle. And there's ways to kind of diversify that retirement and not dump it all in one thing, which there's unpredictability in these retirement accounts that I don't know, regulations might change or just more stuff you don't have control over. Can regulations change in the real estate space or whatever? I mean, yeah, they can too, right? So a lot of these things that I'm saying could change in the concept of retirement accounts can also change elsewhere. I think in some ways you have a little bit more stability if you, or less variables if you manage your own stock portfolio, you know, after doing some research, or if you buy into real estate. So I don't know. It's just kind of full circle how, you know, over reliance on retirement accounts, under reliance on maybe some other things that could supplement your retirement account. It's just kind of funny. Yeah, that's the only point I was bringing up.
And with retirement, I don't want to forget about the early retirement people, right? So we talked about FIRE, and we had a episode on it, and we talked about FIRE in general, financially independent and retire early, multiple times on this podcast.
Yes.
And that's another big con for these 401k and Roth IRA. I get it. There's ways to pull out your money, but it usually comes with some kind of penalty or some kind of caveat.
Right.
You know, let's say your net worth is $4 million and you're ready to retire at 45. You're in a very fortunate place. You played a lot of cards right. But if the $4 million isn't tied up in your 401k and Roth IRA, like, I mean, are you paying the penalties on it, or like, what? How are you gonna? If you're trying to retire, like, you know, you have to go through some hurdles to access that money,
right?
So you're gonna have to accept that penalty and then
now you're losing out on some of your money.
Yeah, and then pay all that as your income now, right? So like, it kind of defeats the purpose of those accounts. You could have done the exact same thing with less penalties, same taxes on the individual stock account. You would have done the exact same thing if you were to retire early. So that was my camp. And, you know, I'm in a very, very fortunate place where, like, I don't, most likely, unless I go to jail or something, I probably don't have to think about having enough money in retirement. And so I'm definitely going to be, or at least pursuing the financial, you know, FIRE movement, trying to retire early. I don't know if I'll actually retire because I do enjoy my work.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy working. But yeah, I mean, for the FIRE movement people, like, it would have been so much better if you just invested into real estate or, you know, stocks outside of those retirement accounts.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal point. I mean, talking to a bit of a niche community, I think growing, and also, like, as a blanket statement, like, retirement early, like, most people want to retirement early. I won't go down too far down that, though, because we do have a whole nother episode on it. That's was a good one.
Yeah.
But no, that's a great point to bring up.
If people want to listen to it, we got episode 5, Financially Independent and Retire Early. And then we also have episode 16, which is Stocks versus Real Estate. Those were really fun episodes we did too.
Oh my God. It's always a good time.
And have you heard the 401k, like, conspiracy theory?
No, I don't think I have.
So basically, the story goes, you know, like, Wall Street and all the rich people are always like, they're gonna get their money, right? So what a great way for the government to incentivize these retirement accounts. That's written in the tax code, right? Like, the 401k comes from the tax code 401k. It's like section 401.k or something like that, right? And then they say, hey man, like, welcome, like, you got your brand new high school grad, college grad, whatever.
Well, yeah.
You start working. How about you invest this money that you're going to do every single month for, you know, 30, 40 years. And Wall Street's always taking their management fee on it. And if the market goes down, guess who pays the price? You do, right?
Yeah.
Wall Street, I mean, they're not taking any responsibility for it. They're taking their management fee. They're happy, and their execs are making money.
Yeah.
And now you just lost 50% in 2008.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, the government's like, oh, like, you know, they can pull it out at 60.
Right.
And they also put a cap on when they have to pull it out because they don't want these people dying with all these money in 401ks. Yeah. And when you die, you don't have to pay taxes on it, right? To evade taxes. They're like, no. Like, before you turn 70, you're going to have to pull that money out. And guess what? You got to pay taxes on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, most people will probably put a lot by them. But no, that's... Ooh, that's tricky. Ooh, that's tricky. Yeah.
And another video, this is just all crazy. It's so funny. Like Roth IRA, like it's post tax, so you don't have to pay. You don't pay taxes when you on the back end when you pull it out, which is a great plan.
Which is good.
It is.
Yeah, that's why.
The caveat is you can't put as much as you want. You're capped at $7,000, or you're capped by income, whatever. But on the 401k side too. Like, people think the 401ks are, you can pull it out tax free. I'm like that's never been a thing.
Yeah.
There's 401k, like there's Roth 401k, which is a separate plan. But most traditional 401ks, because it's called traditional 401k. Yeah. The most common types of 401ks is a traditional 401k. And you do pay taxes on the gains. Mm-hmm. And that gets treated as income. So I don't know where people are getting the idea that, you know, like the regular 401k, you don't have to pay taxes on it. Which I just wanted to clear that up for people who's listening.
Probably through word of mouth. Like, we're hearing max out year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is the same thing. I mean, that's simply misinformation. Yeah. Which is different from like bad information. That's just like, if non-factual is just non-factual. But the maxing out is like a preference thing. But you know, we gotta do what we gotta do and rebel against it.
Yes, sir. Even if, let's say right now 401k, I mean, it's not, but let's just say that it's tax-free right now, right? Dude, in 40 years or 30 years, by the time we're ready to take it, there's zero chance the taxes would have been lower than today. You know, like, zero chance. Like, the United States is taking on more debt every single year, raising the debt ceiling every single year. And if you don't do it, the government shuts down, and then they eventually raise it. But dude, I don't see a possible way where in the future you pay less taxes than we do today.
Right. Yeah.
Again, government and Wall Street's gonna always win.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily surprising, but can't say I'm surprised. But it's always interesting to talk through it and like listen to. Yeah. Oh, dang, that's good. What do you think? I don't know if I can say the most, but like, what do you think is one of the least thought about things to consider when considering a retirement account? That was poorly asked questions, but you know, just to restate the question, when people get retirement accounts, what do you think about as most forgotten?
Yeah, so everyone knows. Yeah, everyone knows the Roth and 401k. Everyone's aware of that. But I would say two things, which one is annuities that we talked about, and does it make the most sense mathematically? No. Mm-hmm. But it gives you the stability that you need during retirement. Okay. And that can be worth more than the money, the opportunity cost that you're giving up. And second is real estate. You buy one house, 15 years later, you can move to another house and buy your forever home that you're going to retire in and get it on a 15-year mortgage. And you're going to have the first house that you bought. This is like bare minimum. Yeah. You got the first house that you bought on a 30-year note, and at the end of the 30 years, it's paid off, and hopefully you bought in a great location. You do your research, and that's going to maybe not cover your entirety of your retirement, but like we alluded to during the podcast, it's going to help. It's better than nothing. And the property value is going to be increased a whole bunch. Maybe you can cash that out and maybe buy 2 rentals that's producing money. But there are so many ways to play it. So I would say annuities and real estate.
Okay. Yeah, you took that a whole different. I mean, those are things we talked about, but yeah, I was just talking about within the retirement accounts, like what are I guess attributes of the retirement account that like people don't forget about. Like your money's gonna be tied up. I mean, like
I see.
But
the feature side.
I like where you took that though. I think those are great things to reiterate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. But
yes, sir.
What about you? After me rambling on during this podcast,
no, dude, is
for your retirement, investment strategy. Like, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? What do you want to do in the future?
Yeah, it sucks because, and I say suck, like I'm excited to do it and stand behind it, but it's like oftentimes similar to like kind of what you're saying. So I think I said in the beginning, but for my so I have a TSP, which is like I just refer to like the 401k kind of equivalent. I only invest to what my employer will match, and I don't think that's going to change. But again, trying to expand within real estate is very appealing to me. So I too am kind of trying to expand in the real estate, and that that could change. And it's also, you're married, so you have a little bit more stability there, just in kind of projecting your finances and your joint financial situation. Whereas like I have a huge variable that hopefully within the next couple years can change, and that may shift things. But my overall philosophy, even still, like I'm gonna be like bullish on real estate for like a while. So yeah, I'm definitely looking outside of the 2 retirement accounts that we spoke to all podcast. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Hopefully,
yes,
hopefully someone took something away.
So many nuggets.
Yeah,
you're preaching, man. No, that was good. Sweet. Well, yeah, as always, we appreciate it. We hope you all live long, prosperous lives. And maybe there's some alternative ways to get you guys some capitals, some stuff to live off on that back end. This is always just food for thought, not like financial advice necessarily, but definitely things to consider. And as we always say, like, do some research on your own end as well, and bring us conversation to the topics. We love it. We appreciate it. We welcome it. That's all we got for y'all. Thank you.